Eric, go ahead. Talk about Working Man.
All right, so this movie was written and directed by Robert Jerry, who I looked up, and, I think this is his first feature. He has, no credits on IMDb, and that shocked me, because this is a really well-done movie. But the movie tells the story of an aging factory worker who's suddenly out of work when his factory shuts down. But finding his home life unsatisfying and actually, in a way, depressing, he begins to secretly work at the factory over a period of time. I, once again, knew little about this movie. I know you had seen it before, but you finally you handed the movie over to me, and I checked it out actually this morning, and I really dug it. So for one, I had never Peter Garrity was one of those guys that I had recognized in a few things, but I had never really seen him get to show off his acting prowess, and I think he was incredible in this movie. He gives a very quiet and subdued performance, and it's because you can tell he's the kind of guy his character is the kind of guy who holds a lot of things in and doesn't really show his emotions like that, even if it drives his wife, Talia Shire, who is also so good in this, even if it drives her crazy. So from the get-go of this movie, he deals with a horrible tragedy, and I think it's early enough in the movie, I think it's a center point of the movie that I can't talk about it. He loses his son. I won't say how exactly it happens, but he loses his son, and for one, from my conversations with my dad, I know that no parent should ever have to bury their child. It's just that's not how things should work. So you can tell that this event in his life has hurt him and his wife, but you can tell it really hurt him. And for him, going to work was kind of his way of stepping away from it, stepping away from the pain, having something to distract him. And it's also that thing of, when you do one profession for so long, for so many years, and you're out of it suddenly, it's kind of that hard mindset of I don't know how to do anything else. Even us, I think we can find relatable of I worked at our theater for years, and now suddenly I don't work there anymore, and I'm okay, well, what do I do now? And granted, I've done other things on the side and had various ways of I guess keeping myself sane, but still it is that hard thing of suddenly a major part of my life and my routine is gone, and I don't know how to cope with that. So I found it incredibly interesting of him, being the kind of guy where he's been there for so long. He's worked there, I can't remember how many years they said, but I want to say it has to be at this point maybe 30 plus years or something like that. And
I thought it was over 50.
It might be over. I have no idea. I
Something
can't remember how old this character is, but it could be. But he's the kind of guy where he knows all the ins and outs of how to get into the building. So he, I think after a day of staying home, goes to the building. It just pops open a door after you're shoving his pocket knife in there, and then he's getting back to work, and and you're working the best to do his ability because there's no power, so mainly it's just him cleaning up the building for a bit, and you're huh, and it's not until he ends up meeting or hanging out with his neighbor Walter, played by Billy Brown, who I love. I've seen him in a whole bunch of other. He's mainly known for TV, as far as I can tell. I've seen him in shows like Sons of Anarchy and How to Get Away with Murder, and he's always been one of those guys that I really respected and like to see. But he always played villains, and in this movie, it was kind of the first time that he got to play someone genuinely charming. At least for for the beginning of the movie. But he's a very likable guy from the get go. He in fact, in the beginning of the movie, reminded me a lot of my dad, and I was immediately drawn to his character and wanted to know more about him. And then eventually we learn more about him. But anyway, when they start working together, it becomes this sort of two against the world kind of mentality. Just hey, we're gonna get this thing back open. The moment he comes back into the Billy's character comes back into the factory, he manages to get the power back on, and it's basically all right, let's get to work. Let's just do what we were not made to do, but what we've been doing for years. And actually, Billy's only been there for 8 months, so. It's for the first time in a while that you can see that Peter's character is finally feeling a sense of unionship with his fellow workers. Probably the first time he's felt that in a while since either since his son passed away or even before that, because he's been there the longest out of anybody. I'm sure all his old coworkers are gone. And then you start to see this community, because a lot of people who work at the factory live on a street, so a lot of them just start, after they notice them going to work in the morning, they're where are you going, and how are you doing this? And it becomes this sort of following, this rebellion in a way. And then by the hour mark, which I like that this is a running theme for me, by the hour mark, the movie takes a turn. and you start to see certain things about some of the characters, and things are brought up, discoveries are made. There are little bits of twist here and there, and then everything starts to make a lot more sense. And there's almost like a dark cloud over top of this, kind of like cheeky, delightful, little drama. And suddenly, like, at that point, I was like, oh my god, I'm so invested. This is all going to go horribly wrong. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And I think that it was really well done by Robert Jury. I think his writing, he knew the right amount of time to pace everything out, so that way when the twist happens, you're kind of taken aback, like, whoa, wait, what's going on? So I found that incredibly well done. But if there's anything about this movie, it's that while it is about the working class and not us, but like the working class feeling like they're being shelved or forgotten, and that big business can pretty much tell them what to do and throw them out as soon as they're done with them. But it's also mainly a story about grief, and how people handle it differently, and how we oftentimes use our work or anything to escape from grief. Like me personally, I didn't bring up a personal story, is that about 2 years ago, I lost my dog. She passed away. We had owned her for 12 years. And the day that we decided to put her down, I went to work. I went to work that morning. My parents took care of it. And the most I did was that morning before I went to work, I hugged her and I kissed her. And I was just like, hey, I love you. I miss you. And, that was that. And then I think at some point in the middle of the day, my parents texted me and said, like, hey, it's done. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't go home. I went to a friend's house, and I didn't even tell him what happened. I just said, hey, can I come over? He said, sure, why not? And I just hung out there for the rest of the day. My parents texted me and said, hey, are you good? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm over Jeremy's house. And his family didn't figure it out until, like, at some point somebody put it on Facebook. And they finally came up to me like, hey, are you good? Like, we heard about what happened. I'm like, yeah, I didn't want to be home. And I completely understood that in Peter's character, the fact that, like, he didn't want to be around the sadness, and in the case of, like, what happened to his son, he didn't want to be that close to I guess the place where it happened. And I understand that. Like, for me, like, yeah, my dog wasn't put down in my house, but, like, walking in my house and seeing, I still look at it, the wall where she used to sleep, like, she used to sleep right next to it, really bummed me out. I was just like, wow, there's a void in there now. And I completely understand the idea of using anything and anything to distract yourself from it. So I thought that was riveting, and really spoke to my heart. And I also want to say that I was curious because I hadn't seen Talia in a movie in a while. So, and I really can't remember the last movie I saw her in. So I found it a complete delight to see her back.
She was so good.
She was so good in it. She was so human. There was one point where she did annoy me. It's when she gets invited to Walter's house and she goes through his cabinets, and I'm like, yo, this is your house. Don't go through people's stuff. But it's all for the intention of, like, she's trying to make sure that her husband's okay. And it's like, okay, you're not a bad person. You're just looking out for your husband to make sure that the people that he's hanging around are good people. So there was that. Still, that being said, don't come over to my house and go through my cabinets. Don't do that. But still,
but I mean, what she does with that information is
exactly. There's that
a huge part of her character.
Yeah,
in the film.
What she does with it, I found it as a shock, and I was like, wow, that was brave of her, if anything, to keep the information that she finds. But she's so good in this movie, dude, to the point where I got mad that they killed her off in Rocky Balboa. I was like, dang, I would have loved to see her in this franchise still.
I thought you meant working.
Oh, no.
Like, what are you talking?
You're like, did you watch the same movie? No, dude, I was actually pissed off that she wasn't she's not in the Rocky movies anymore, in the Creed movies now. I think she's a great actress. And it was really, really good to see her, and she was very human. And yeah, I'm sure she's just as much as a delight over the phone.
Yeah, no, she was great. Are you jealous?
Low key, a little bit.
But hey, real quick, I won't say too much about this movie. I really did like it too. Before you give your rating, I just want to say this. I'm glad you mentioned it. because even though like you obviously had the connection with your dog, I want to say even if you didn't have a dog or whatever, it is so easy to connect with these characters.
Yeah.
Like within like the first 5 minutes of the movie, I was in Allery's position.
Yeah.
I it was actually the basis of one of my questions with her, and I was shocked at how easily I was able to relate to these characters and just be engrossed in the story. So this is a film I think that needs to be checked out.
Absolutely. I don't know when it will be officially available on VOD or how exactly they're gonna.
May 5th.
May 5th. Okay, cool.
It's this week.
I think everybody needs to check it out. It's a really, really good movie. So yeah, I'll
takes on an entirely new meaning now as well, with everything shutting down because of the coronavirus.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So everybody should check this movie out. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. I really, really like it.